Hey, welcome in. Today, we're getting into something that, let's be honest, we could all use more of: mental toughness. But we're not talking about some fuzzy, abstract idea. We are going to break down a practical, step-by-step framework for building a mind that can seriously handle whatever life decides to throw at it.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to completely redefine what mental toughness even means. Then, we'll go inside your head to tackle that inner battle. After that, we'll get practical and build the daily habits that create real, lasting strength. And finally, we'll figure out your very first step forward. Sound good? Let's do it.
Okay, first things first. One of the biggest mistakes we make is thinking of mental toughness as this magical quality you either have or you don't. But honestly, that's just not how it works.
So here it is, the big shift in thinking you need to make. Mental toughness isn't something you are, it's something you do. It's a skill, plain and simple. It's built and tested in those really hard moments. It's not about being a robot with no emotions. It's about choosing your actions despite what you're feeling. And where does this all begin? Well, it starts the second you stop waiting around for someone to come save you. It starts when you look at your life right now and say, okay, the only person who can really change this is me. It's not about being alone. It's about taking ownership. And this isn't just theory. Let me tell you a story from our source material that just hits this point home perfectly. So, after the author graduated from university, he just kind of assumed his dad, who had worked at a huge company for like 25 years, would pull a few strings and get him a job. I mean, it seemed like the obvious next step, right? But his father's response was a total shock. He just said, "Nope, I'm not going to help you. Pave your own way." Now, at the time, that must have felt like a huge rejection. But looking back, he realized it was the most helpful thing his father could have ever done for him. He wasn't being denied help, he was being taught self-reliance. That is mental toughness in action. All right, so once you've decided to take responsibility, the next battlefield is right between your ears. This is where the real work happens. It's where most of our struggles are either won or lost. So winning this inner battle is all about actively rewiring how your brain works. It means looking at a really tough situation and not seeing it as a threat, but as a chance to get stronger, like a training session. It's about managing those crazy negative emotions, picturing yourself succeeding, and maybe most important of all, finally dealing with that little voice inside your head.
And this brings us to a really crucial point. We all have that inner critic, right? But is yours destructive or is it constructive? See, a destructive critic attacks who you are. It says stuff like, "You failed because you're weak." But a constructive one, it focuses on what you did. It says, "I failed because I didn't prepare enough." One makes you want to give up, the other gives you a clear roadmap for how to get better. Huge difference.
Okay, another massive part of this inner battle is steering clear of the comparison trap. It is so easy to look at someone else and think, man, they have it so much easier, or look at all their advantages. And every time you have that thought, you're building up these giant icebergs of resentment and unfairness inside yourself. The source material tells this amazing story about a guy in his university class who had everything. I mean, his dad literally bought him a brand new car just to try and convince him to stay in school. And yet, even with all of that handed to him, he still dropped out. This story just proves the point perfectly. Success isn't about what you're given. It's about what you build inside your own mind. The author, who had no car at all, he graduated. Okay, so we've redefined toughness, and we've started to win the battle in our minds. But a strong mindset without action, well, it's pretty useless, isn't it? So now we have to build the habits that turn these ideas into your day-to-day reality.
So here's the framework, the real nuts and bolts. It's about making a conscious choice to be tough when things get hard. It's about breaking your huge goals down into tiny, manageable pieces. It's about learning to bounce back faster every single time you stumble. And it's about building tiny, ridiculously consistent habits. Oh, and one more thing we almost always forget, actually celebrating the small wins.
Let's talk about discipline for a second. It sounds like this big, scary word, but it starts ridiculously small. The author brings up the idea of making your bed. Why? Because if you start your day by accomplishing the very first task you set for yourself, you create this little spark of momentum. When you keep a simple promise to yourself, like reading just one page of a book or making your bed, you're training that willpower muscle, and you're going to need that muscle for the big challenges later on.
Now, this is probably my favorite analogy from the source material. Think about a marathon runner. When they hit a wall at, say, kilometer 12, they don't torture themselves by thinking about the finish line way off at kilometer 20. That would be completely demoralizing. No, their entire world shrinks down to one single goal. Just get to kilometer 13.
And that is exactly how we should be treating our big, long-term goals. If your goal is to be a CEO in 10 years and you only focus on that, every single day is going to feel like a failure. But if you celebrate that small promotion, that successful project, that one piece of great feedback, you're celebrating the kilometer markers. These small wins are the fuel. They're the proof that you're on the right track, and they're what keep you going.
So, we've covered the mindset, we've done the inner work, and we've talked about the habits. What does this all add up to? Let's bring it all home and figure out your first step forward. Here's the most important thing to remember. You never just arrive at mental toughness. It's not a destination. It's a muscle you have to train every single day. And the reality is, as you grow and take on more in life, the challenges just get bigger. The problems you face as a manager are way bigger than the ones you faced as a new employee. Every single challenge you get through today is just training for the tougher ones that are definitely coming tomorrow.
So, I'm going to leave you with this one question. Forget the 10-year plan for just a minute. What's your next kilometer marker? What is one small achievable victory that you can aim for today, and more importantly, that you can actually take a moment to celebrate tonight? Because that, right there, is where it all begins.